start. If you are new here, I am Shayla, a second-generation homeschool mom with 6 kids, from 12th grade all the way down to kindergarten. I'm also a homeschool mentor for new homeschool parents, and we live on a homestead in the mountains. This video is packed, mamas. In this video, I'm answering subscriber questions from how to start homeschooling and so much more. Be sure to look at the chapters below in the description if you're looking for something specific. Okay, L'Oreal, yes, I think I said your name right, L'Oreal. If I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. How to start homeschooling. Okay, it's pretty simple. Every state has homeschool laws. So the first step you would do is you would look up the homeschool laws in your state, make sure you comply with those. The next thing you would do is start making your plans, like start researching homeschool styles so that you know which one you align with most of all. There's many different styles out there. You can take a quiz online to find your homeschool style. The next step would be to start, shopping for curriculum that aligns with the chosen style that you have. I would also join some groups so you could ask some questions. Kathy Duffy Reviews is great for researching curriculum. It's very helpful to know your style before you start looking at curriculum though. And then get started. It's really quite simple. It's that simple. Homeschool Legal Defense Association. You look them up too. You can also look up more simplified laws for your state. Another thing that I would do is join local Facebook groups for your area. Whatever your area is, type that in on Facebook and look for homeschool groups in your local area for support. Okay, so Jennifer wants to know, she's overwhelmed with house and trying to balance home and work life and being in late 40s. My question is, do you think a child could succeed in a homeschool program such as the one you do at home with your kids if he's taken out of public school? Absolutely. Hands down, absolutely. Join some of the groups on Facebook for beginning homeschooling. Find out what your state laws are and then take them out and start researching. I would get the books, what your child needs to know, and just have the child start going through those while you're researching what kind of a homeschool style is going to be best for you. And once you have that established and you know what homeschool style you want to go with, look for curriculum that fits that style and get started. It takes about a year to really get your rhythm with homeschooling, 2 years for some people. So you want to make sure you give yourself lots of grace. Okay, so she's got a child in speech therapy as well. Yeah, I've been there. Totally been here. Yes, I would definitely say that yes, your child would thrive more so in a home environment. Not to doubt that. Make sure if there are programs, like if your child needs speech therapy, make sure to take advantage of some of the programs in your area. Next question, budgeting for curriculum. No one ever really talks about the cost of homeschooling. I've been doing this for 12 years. The poster has been doing this for 12 years. And it's quite a juggle to stay within the family budget and not send us to the poorhouse. I can remember when I first started this journey years ago, having sticker shock and wondering how I was going to manage it. It seems to work out, but it's a very stressful part of homeschooling. And this is from Shayla. That is, okay. Oh my gosh, so many thoughts. The first thing that comes to mind is all the times that I've been doing this for 14 years now. I'm a second-generation homeschooler. I have seen so many different curriculums. I've tried so many different curriculums. Some work better than others. One of the best curriculums that I have found in all of my years of doing this is actually, at this time, they still offer a free option. So that is definitely something I'm taking advantage of. I have a couple different large family homeschool mom friends who also are taking advantage, and they are also second-generation homeschoolers. None of us have ever seen a curriculum that is as amazing as this curriculum is, and I'll tell you which one it is in a minute. But there is lots of free curriculum out there. So there's always that. I think Easy Peasy is another place. It's not what we use, but that's another place where you can get, is it Easy Peasy or schoolhouse.com or something like that. They offer free curriculum though. One of the ways we budget for curriculum is primarily for history science, art, geography. We use My Father's World. It's non-consumable for the most part. Very affordable. It's kind of a hefty chunk up front, but if you've got a lot of children and you're going to be homeschooling for a long time, I do recommend it for those subjects because it is non-consumable, so it will save you in the long run. You have to buy the cycle at first, but if you've got a lot of children and you're going to be homeschooling for like a lot of years, because you have a larger family, My Father's World is definitely one of the best ways to go because, again, it's non-consumable and you can't beat that. You do have to buy some student sheets, but they're pretty affordable. Another way that we budget for curriculum is we use tax return money. So when we get our tax return, if we need new curriculum, that's what we do. We get it at that time of year. That means I have to be prepared though. Usually the sales, that's another thing, I look for sales, and usually the best homeschool sales are going to be February, March, April, May. Those are when the big homeschool sales start happening. So I like to start planning my upcoming homeschool year in January and February. I also find that in doing so, it kind of helps a little bit keep me charged and helps me overcome the burnout to a certain extent. But I get the homeschool planning all done early so that I'm ready to take advantage of those sales as they start rolling out. So the curriculum that I was mentioning, it is non-denominational, and I wanted to say that first before I tell you which one it is. But the curriculum that we found that is unlike any curriculum that I've ever seen before and really saves a lot of money, and it also saves a lot of stress for especially large family homeschool moms. It is The Good and the Beautiful. And as of right now, they are still offering free homeschool curriculum. If you read their mission statement, they do not cater to any specific denomination. It is non-denominational, or maybe it's not even interdenominational. I was going to say inter, but it's not interdenominational. It is non-denominational. And I think it's wonderful. I've got other large family homeschool moms that have been using it for a while. They all think it's wonderful. None of us have ever found anything LDS or Mormon in it. And a lot of us second generation homeschoolers especially are impressed with it because it is unlike anything we've ever tried and seen before. It is seriously one of the best curriculums that is on the market, in my opinion. And it's funny, I don't know how many times though, this is like completely off topic. It's just a side note. I don't know about you guys, but it used to offend me so much when this would happen. And now I just say something. I don't let it offend me like I used to. I just say something. I don't know, have you guys ever been asked to donate to a fundraiser to the public school kids in like your friends or family? We have. And it used to be so offensive because I'm thinking, you know what, wait a minute. I am saving, so in my situation, I'm saving the state around $80,000 in taxpayer money a year by homeschooling. I'm also paying for my children's curriculum out of my pocket. So it used to be really offensive when people would say, can you donate to my children's fundraiser? Okay, we do pay taxes and we're already putting that money in and we're not getting anything and we're homeschooling our own. You know what I did? I just started learning to say something. I tell them, I just say, you know what, I can't. It's pretty much all we can do to pay for our children's curriculum. We are paying for it out of our pocket. So that kind of stops people from pestering you to donate to their children's fundraisers. Anyways, I just wanted to insert that in there in case other people have dealt with that too. No, homeschooling can be expensive. This is again another side note, but I think it's important. It's something that needs to be said. A lot of mothers feel guilty for not working, for staying home, for homeschooling their children. Some are made to feel guilty by family members who act like they're, not contributing to society. So that's why I wanted to mention this here. If you are homeschooling, look it up. Every state has a certain amount of money they allocate per child that is enrolled in a public school. And it differs by each state. And I think it also differs a little bit by the district. If you feel guilty because you feel like I'm not contributing to society, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, and I'm homeschooling, and if you're feeling guilty over that, don't. Look it up and see how much money that you are saving the state every year by homeschooling however many children you are. Okay, let's see, next question here. How to juggle a newborn with homeschooling older kids. This is by Dinka. I'm going to answer that in another video. I actually have an entire section of an upcoming video. Once that video is done, I will link to it below because that is an important question that is kind of a lengthy answer. Michelle is asking, how do you handle teaching your faith to your kids? Do you encourage them to develop their own relationship with God? That's a really good question. Oh, that's one of the reasons I try to do curriculum that is faith-based. Okay, so that's one of the big reasons I homeschool, is so that I can get a faith-based curriculum to kind of walk me through that process. Other things that I found to be helpful are Awana for kids. I think that's great for kids. Our kids love Awana. We have a lot of talks. We probably I want to say maybe weekly, we end up having some kind of a faith-based talk. My husband does Bible church or home church on Sundays with our children. Sometimes he's just reading the children's Bible to the younger children, some Bible verses to the older kids. But those are some ways that we do that. We pray for our kids, and of course we try to live it. How to manage homeschooling and homesteading with chronic illness and unpredictability of flares and symptoms. I think I answered that question in another video. I answered that in my regular Q&A. So I'm not going to go into much detail on that here, but I will touch on it because it is homeschool related. Year-round homeschooling gives me more time to get things done, accommodates for sicknesses. So that is one of the biggest ways that I manage everything is year-round. I don't squish everything in or try to squish it into a time frame. Okay, here's a question from Anna Maria. How do you do community other than your family? How do you stay engaged in friendship relationships, having a homestead and being a homeschool family? And she says, I love watching your videos and you are a great inspiration for me as a mom of 3 busy boys. Oh, thank you, Anna. Okay, so how do you do community? This is going to be a fun one. Well, to answer that question, I feel like I have a harder time staying connected to my friends than my kids do theirs. So I'll say that first. It's my best friends are all other homeschool moms who also have large families. And so we kind of pass each other by and we're like, peace to you. You doing okay? Awesome. I've been praying for you, So it's harder, I think, for us moms when it comes to that, especially if you've got other irons in the fire. As far as the children go, though, my kids, I'm so blessed because personally I don't have to worry about this very much because I have the big family mom friends that I do have. A few of them I'm like literally sandwiched between them. I am sandwiched between some of my longest friends that I've had for over 20 years. Some of the friends I've had over almost 40 years. And I am sandwiched between longtime friends, and they have big families. So I am back in my hometown community where I know lots of other homeschool moms, and I have homeschool friends that I've had for almost all of my life, and now our kids are friends, and my kids have more friends than I do. So I will say though, if you are really worried about that, I am an unsocialized homeschool kid. I was homeschooled through the 80s and into the 90s. I did not have many friends. My family, we didn't go to a regular church. They had some unique beliefs that I don't have. But I was definitely one of those unsocialized homeschoolers. So when people say to me, what about socialization for, the kids? I always come back with, well, I'm an unsocialized homeschooler. Are you saying there's something wrong with me? I don't feel like I suffered that much from, at the time, I remember especially when I was 14, we weren't going anywhere because we had a fallout with some other people in our church, so our family wasn't going anywhere. From the time I was 12 to 14, so I would write my friends, and we always would write letters back and forth to each other, even though we didn't get to see each other very often, we would write letters, and because that's what you did in the 80s and 90s. Anyways, and then I had another friend I would call on the phone quite often, but I didn't get to see them very often. Oh, I remember it being hard when I was like 12 to 14. When I was 15, we started going once a month to this church building that we would go to, and I would get to see my friends once a month. And of course, as a teenager, you would love moving in with your friends, right? Which wouldn't necessarily be the best thing. But as a child, it seemed worse. Looking back, it was good for me to have more alone time because it helped me to set deeper roots in my relationship with Christ and God. And when I started having children, that is when I really tapped into the relationship that I had built with Christ through my loneliness in my teen years. So I feel like people worry about the socialization thing more than they should. I also believe that forced association is not socialization. My family has been in situations where people can tell we're homeschooled when I've asked them the reasons why or how can they tell. They say, well, it's because of how well your kids communicate, and they talk to everybody. They talk to babies, they talk to kids that are littler than them, they talk to kids their age, they talk to kids that are older, and they don't have any problems communicating and socializing with everybody. And then they said to me, with public school kids, you can tell because they only want to talk to kids that are their age. And the other thing about it is that everybody says, you know, we're going to send our kid to public school for socialization. But the thing is that I was in public school for 1 year for kindergarten. And I remember very well, I did not have friends and the socialization was not positive. I remember that there was mean girls that wouldn't play with me. They would exclude me. I remember there was weird kids that would do weird things in class that made me uncomfortable. I remember that there was fighting. I remember 2 boys once fighting and getting in trouble. That was when they still had corporal punishment, you guys, and they brought all of the kids into the gymnasium. We got called out of class, and they actually spanked 2 of these kids in public in front of all of us kids. So that's my public school experience and my socialization experience in public school. So let's just say, and I remember I got in really big trouble as a child. My mother got chewed out by the teacher because I was talking too much. So there's that. I mean, you know, obviously socialization was not okay, and I was talking and socializing too much in school. So, you know, I just don't think that the socialization argument should even exist when it comes to homeschool. But like I said, I might be a bad person to ask too, because my kids, they have so many friends. They have more friends than I do that they get to see all the time. So I might not be the best person to ask that question to. All right, I think this might be the last question, but this one, you guys, this literally made me laugh out loud. Okay, so we've got Mira B. Gal, you crack me up. You're like my kind of people here. Mira says, I'm seriously considering homeschooling my 2 kids in the next year or so. I'm terrified. The thought of being responsible for my kids and learning just paralyzes me with fear. I would love to know how to even get started with the process. Like, how do I find out my state's requirements? Do you need to submit something every year as proof of the completed grade? How do you choose a curriculum? Christian-based? Can you get free materials? How expensive is it to homeschool? How do you not take up, this is the part that I cracked up laughing, literally laughed out loud. How do you not take up drinking as a hobby while teaching your kids? Just kidding. I think so. All right, I think I already answered how to get started for most of that. First, you definitely look up your state standards. Look for homeschool groups that are on Facebook for your state. That's a good way to find more information. Do you need to submit something every year as proof? It depends on your state. Some states do require that. How do you choose a curriculum? Christian-based, I think I just answered that. Yes, I like to do Christian-based personally myself for most subjects. Some subjects, I don't stress about it too much. Can you get free materials? Yes, you can get free materials. There's all kinds of places. What is it? Homeschool. There are places. If you type in free curriculum, actually the Good and Beautiful, they have free curriculum for some of their grades. How expensive is it? Honestly, the expense part, it just depends on what you want to use. So that can vary wildly. Like, you can get completely all free curriculum, or if you want things like super specific for certain needs, that can end up costing more. Like for our family, it's pretty expensive because we get a curriculum that teaches all the kids at once with some subjects in grades 3 through 7. So, you know, once a year we had to buy the cycles in that curriculum, and they would range from $300 to $500, but that would be for multiple kids. So it just depends. It depends on so many factors, and it doesn't have to be expensive. The part about being responsible for your kids' learning just paralyzes you with fear. I definitely know exactly what you're saying there from probably my first, you know, and honestly, to tell you the truth, it wasn't until I started homeschooling high school that I realized that even though I felt like I botched the first 10 years, I didn't even come close to botching it. I realized by the time my kids were hitting high school, it was a little harder with the first because the ADHD, but when my kids started hitting high school and I sat down and I mapped out the next 4 high school years, I realized, one, that I wish I had done it sooner. I think it's always a really good idea now to start planning like the end goal at the beginning so that you can pace things out. So I have in my other videos, I've talked about how you can plan all the remaining years of school that you have left, and I highly recommend doing that. For me, I explained it in my planning video. So I just did a planning video and I explained exactly how to plan and how I do that in that video. But if you map out the remaining school years, that will help take a lot of stress off. One thing that I ended up learning towards the end, because I've got my oldest, he's getting ready to graduate, and then I've got another one that's halfway through high school. She's getting ready to go into 11th grade. And one thing I realized in the last 4 years is that even on my worst homeschool days, I was still doing like 10 times better than I thought I was. And I learned that if I could get in 3 really good homeschool days, 2 or 3 really good packed homeschool days, they were getting in as much or more than they would be getting in a 5-day week in a public school. You can do so much more with less time at home in homeschool. You can do more effective lessons. You can get curriculum that actually really meets your kids' needs instead of trying to, pound a square peg into a round hole like people do with, or like teachers have to do with kids in public school. You can really accommodate your children's needs in a homeschool setting so you're able to do more in less time. And another thing that I learned that really made a big difference is that even if you're just half trying, you're doing more than what is being done in a public school. And another thing is if you have God, He takes even those small efforts and He makes something with them. So when my oldest children were younger, and my younger children too, so we have this thing, I think everybody has experienced this. Okay, you go through this great lesson, you teach this wonderful lesson, and you're excited about it, and you feel like you really just taught a good lesson, and then you ask them at the end, so okay, can you repeat back to me some of the things you learned? And they're like, I forgot. All right, I think that's enough to drive even the most patient and gracious of homeschool moms batty. Or, Daddy comes home and you say to the kids, tell Daddy what you learned today. And you're hoping that they're gonna, make you look good and show off to Daddy, and that Daddy's gonna go, wow, you learned a lot, And the kid's like, I don't know, we don't really do much. Like, how many times have you guys been through that? I quit. I just quit. I will make them go write something down. That's what I do now. Or an oral, like you have to give me at least 2 things that you learned. So I'm more strict now. But here's the thing. Sometimes when they're little, it is almost as if they forgot the lesson. But here's the exciting part. So I had my oldest kid, and he's an adult now. He's 18. He's getting ready to graduate. He is bringing up lessons that I taught back in 1st grade to him. And like I said, those first years, we didn't have good curriculum. They were rough. They were hard. I was trying to learn how to teach an ADHD child. And I felt like I was just messing up left and right. I cried probably gallons of tears, thinking I was just messing up so bad. And I remember asking him after these lessons that he has been bringing up. I remember years ago teaching a lesson, I remember asking him afterwards, so can you tell me a couple things you learned? And he couldn't. 10 years later, he can. So it's kind of like planting seeds, and you don't see them sprout right away. It's later that you start to see them sprout and the fruit comes, but it takes some time sometimes. So with a lot of homeschooling, that's what it is. You're basically going around planting seeds. The next year you might come around and review the same concept, water those seeds and just kind of keep it growing. But the thing is that so much of the school repeats. Many parents don't know that. There are some people that have said you can actually take all that 12 years of education. It actually, if you were to condense it, it would all fit easily into 4 years. So I don't know if that'll take some stress off for you. Math and language arts are 2 ones to focus heavy on, especially if you're just getting started. You might just focus on those for a little while. I would definitely recommend the good and the beautiful too, because the good and the beautiful language arts will incorporate other subjects into it, and it will make it so that your entry is much smoother and easier if you don't have to do a whole bunch of different subjects. Some books that I would recommend if you really are worried about your children like falling behind are What Your Child Needs to Know series, and they have them for grades kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. So those are some really good books. Also, the intros of those books are very good, and they will expose a lot of things that most parents do not know about the public school system. Parents think way more is happening in a public school system than what is, and these books kind of do a really good job of explaining the gaps in the public school system. Many parents have this idea that if, public school system has no gaps. So these books do a really good job of showing just how bad they really do have gaps, and that there are gaps. And so, people need to stop comparing their homeschool to a public school, because, we're talking like, homegrown, organic, beautiful education over here versus McDonald's, all right? So stop trying to meet those McDonald's standards, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't worry about it. Try not to let it paralyze you with fear, because there's nothing to be afraid of. If you even half care about your child's education, you're going to be able to do way better than they would be getting in a public school. Plus, they will be safe.